Your audience members aren't your clients. And if in the last 3 to 6 months you've been posting content consistently and you know how amazing your program is, you've put something together, you might have tested on yourself, you've got rave reviews from clients telling you how amazing you are, how amazing that transformation was, but you can only rely on referrals. Or the only way to get people on a call is if you reach out, if you push that call, and you feel like you want to focus more on attracting people to sign up to your newsletter, to click those links, to reach out to you for help, inquiring more about your services. It's probably because you're missing out on this one thing that I don't see too many people focus on. And it's the fact that you assume that your audience members, those potential buyers who might be just a few clicks away from paying for your services, believe the words you say. And it's normal for us to assume this because we have our experience. We have built up an authority. We built up that page. So it's obvious for us to think that whatever we share, people will believe it. And then sometimes that's what the feedback is as well. We get comments, we get people saying, I can relate to this, but usually the people who believe us, who agree with us, don't tend to be the people who are going to become our potential clients. Because if there's one thing that I teach my students in my program about subconscious communication, about building that magnetic messaging, is the reason people don't have their results, the reason your clients may not have the results, is because they don't have the belief that they would need to hold so they get through that transformation. So what we do in our programs with my members is simply building a case, coming up with different ways to show people how it's their beliefs that hold them back from getting their results. Because once you get people on board with the belief, it's going to be a lot easier for you to sell without even necessarily pushing your program in their faces, because it's going to be the next logical step for them to invest in, which is ultimately our goal with content marketing as purpose-driven entrepreneurs. So in this video, you're going to be learning 3 super powerful ways you can make sure your audience members, your potential client, that person, again, who's just one step away from handing over their hard-earned money for your services, will believe you, will believe what you say, because you back up your stuff, your statements. And this is something that takes practice. Whenever I create videos, and I've been in the online space with my first business for the last 5 years, I always focus on whether what I'm saying is a fact that would, people would just generally agree with, or it's a statement or a claim that is a belief that I need to back up for my audience to come along with me, for my audience to keep believing that what I'm saying makes total sense. And this is a craft. This is an art and a science, communication, subconscious communication, that is likely to help you not just increase the amount of people who see you as the authority because you prove to them with proof, backing up your claims, that you are the authority, that you are their go-to person, but also increase the amount of people who inquire about your services, who might sign up for your newsletter because they feel like what you're saying makes total sense and they want to learn more, or people who reach out to you, click that buy button, and then eventually become your client. Ready to take notes on this? Because the first one is going to be really simple, but very much overlooked when it comes to how I see disconnected creators create content and the reason there's no conversions, no signups, opt-ins, let alone sales. And it's what we call the illogical truth framing, because so many times all of these beliefs that we have are things that we just keep repeating without ever questioning them. And understanding this is going to be your superpower. When you're able to uncover what beliefs your audience members, the people you can help and make an impact on, hold, that they keep repeating to themselves without ever consciously stopping and thinking, is this really true? Is this really serving me? Is this really empowering me on this journey? And you present them with how that belief doesn't align with what things are like. So you create what we call a cognitive dissonance, challenging your audience's beliefs that they may never have questioned because so many other creators don't focus on belief shifting in their content. A simple example of how automatic our thinking is, how automatic your audience's thinking is when they are listening to your words, when they are reading your words, is an example I saw in Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And the example is a bat and a ball cost $1.10. And the bat costs $1 more than the ball. So how much does the ball cost? Most people without conscious thinking would just say 10 cents. It's obvious, when that's actually not true, because if the bat costs $1 more than the ball, and if the ball is 10 cents, the bat cost $1.10 because it's $1 more. So altogether they would cost $1.20. And this simple exercise shows how often we default to an answer without actually thinking, strongly believing that what we believe is the truth. Not because of any sort of other reason than because it's been repeated in our culture, through our parents, in our families, in our societies, but we never stopped and say, is this really helpful? Do I want to choose to believe this from now on? And you can use this in many different ways when you make a statement, especially when it's a controversial, polarizing statement that you want your audience to start believing, to start holding. An example would be like in the parenting space, when you might say strict rules all the time make kids behave well in adulthood. And then you could show them research, how, well, the research actually says otherwise, because more autonomous kids who are allowed to make their own choices and then face the consequences, exhibit better behavior than those who were constantly getting scolded and forced to do things they didn't want to do. Or a finance coach could debunk the myth of how people would just say, yeah, I'm gonna make my coffee at home and I'm not gonna go to Starbucks, and I save that $5 every single day, and then I'm gonna be a millionaire within the next 10 years. And then they could present how actually investing those $5 every single day for 10 years would yield a lot more investment returns than saving money that actually loses its value because of inflation. And the reason this is so effective, anytime you consciously and intentionally focus on backing up those claims, especially if you're sharing some bold declarations, statements, is because not only does it position you as the authority, because your audience would say, this guy, finally someone gets his shit and I'm gonna buy his stuff, but it also makes people reflect. What we want to focus on is not the people who would find every reason not to believe you, come up with all the questions, keep consuming your content for 5-10 years, never buy. And I'm not saying we can't help with free content. There's lots of people going to implement what you share, but who we want to focus on is the people who have critical thinking, who are coachable, who are able to see things differently, because we can't expect to coach someone if they're not willing to be coachable. So this is a great way you can already target with the type of content you create, the type of people who then you can help with their transformation. The second one is storytelling. And again, this is an art and a science. We need to be able to tell stories, not just the type of stories that we learn to tell when we learned storytelling in school, or the type of stories that our parents used to tell us when we were kids. It's storytelling for digital marketing, because you have audience members who come across your content every single day and they don't know you, they don't know what you do, they don't know the value of your offer. So they have a few seconds to decide if they want to keep on listening to you, which is why any aligned entrepreneur I've ever seen who built that 7-8 figure coaching business living in their purpose learned and mastered storytelling, made it part of their brand, part of their content creation as well. Because stories speak to the subconscious, they evoke emotions, they tell people through imagery, through all kinds of senses, at least the way I teach it in my program, to drive a point home, instead of the traditional way of like sharing the how to 5 ways to do this and that people honestly many times just scroll past, or even if they listen to it and then they say these were some great ideas, I needed this reminder, but they never actually change anything. Now this is where we can play into two things. Many times the mistake people make is that they talk too much about their own stories. And it's great. You need a brand story, you need a conversion story. This is at the core of the framework that I teach in my messaging membership. But at the same time, we also want to make sure that we don't just back things up because of our experience. And this is where your case studies, your testimonials, the experiences, people that you've helped, that you've coached, is always going to come in handy. People don't just want to see how things worked for you, because obviously you are the one building a case for your business, for your offers. They want to see how those things worked for them as well. So creating stories around how someone used to believe a certain way, who came to you for help, but then experience this transformation because of doing XYZ. It's going to be an amazing way for you to prove your point by showing how that has not been people's experience who have been in your program. This way, also building demand for the offers that you're promoting. But here's where we need to be intentional with the stories we share, because way too many times I see testimonials shared on the internet, in Instagram stories, on all kinds of different platforms. And then I have creators coming to me and say, well, I've been sharing my testimonials and no one seems to be reaching out. And it's because, again, subconscious thinking, the way people perceive something, the way something lands with them about something you say, is all a question of how you frame it. So instead of just shoving a whole 2-3 paragraph testimony in their face, what we want to do is prepare, to frame, to prepare their mind to pay attention to certain things about this testimonial that needs to also include a couple of things that, based on sales psychology and subconscious communication, will get people to see that you are the go-to person who can help them. And part of that could be a testimonial you share about how someone was really scared of investing in your program and what they went through, the process, the thinking process, and then how eventually they ended up investing in it because they thought, well, it's time for me to take a risk, even though I've been burnt by, I bought so many different courses, but now it's time for me to finally invest in myself, because that's the way I say to myself, I'm all in, I'm committed. So reflect on this and let me know in the comments. Have you been intentionally collecting all kinds of testimonials? Have you been sharing them in a way that also helps people see how their beliefs about investing in your services, about the results that you want, that you can help them get intentionally? If not, make a mental note, and after this video, I want you to start posting testimonials in a way that gives a frame to it, so people see what's the whole point of you sharing that testimonial. And then let me know your results in the comments. The third one, and it's been a bit more popular, but again, I don't see too many people using it in their content, and it's analogies. We need to understand that your clients have a hard time understanding what's beyond their belief system. It's like how an analogy, one of the business coaches explained it to us a few years ago. When you're inside a bottle, you don't see what's written on the label. Great analogy and a great way to drive this home, understanding how your current audience is in that box, is inside that bottle. What you need to find a way to do is, instead of just offloading a bunch of information to them, thinking that posting more content, giving them more information, more strategies, more frameworks, more how-tos is going to help them start considering investing in your services. But instead, we want to play into how their subconscious understands concepts. Whereas the brain, when there's too much new information, when something is too complex, will check out. And one of the reasons so many people might scroll past your videos or they don't finish it, it's also the reason so many courses aren't finished, because so many creators don't know how to educate. This is me speaking with 17 years of experience in adult education and adult education psychology. So instead of all that information, what we want to do is we want people to see how things work. So explaining in an analogy how the frameworks that you teach, how the transformation that they need is going to happen. In my first business, which is a language coaching business, when I hear people say, oh, why is learning English taking so much time? Like, I've been putting in the work and I've been learning consistently. After 5 or 6 years, I still don't have all that advanced vocabulary. And I always tell them, it's like if you have a garden and you plant seeds that take some time, like sometimes, 6 to 8 weeks to grow and actually show some signs of growth. Would you stop watering that area, giving it all kinds of nutrients, allowing it to be exposed to the sun because you don't see results when on the ground there's actually growth happening? Or the way I explain messaging to anyone who comes to my webinars or challenges or anything else I hold is by talking about a bridge. We've got content, we've got an audience, we've got an offer, but there's a huge river with sharks in it, with all kinds of different offers that would burn them, that we don't want them to get, that would probably cause them a lot of trouble, that would betray them, that would take away their money, that are not effective. As long as we build a bridge that helps them see the value of our offer, because we build a world of value that they could see before investing in that offer, so making that purchase is the next logical step, everything is going to be easier, both for the client and for us purpose-driven entrepreneurs. These are the simplest ones to come up with. You can even ask ChatGPT to come up with a bunch of or 3 really effective analogies to explain your process, explain that transformation that people still can't experience. What helps you build that magnetic messaging that makes people land on your page and say, this guy is speaking to me, I want to buy his program immediately because I can't stay another day without this program, without this support. So sometimes you may pick an analogy and then you talk about it and people don't seem to resonate. It doesn't seem to, lead to those light bulb moments, those ahas. Then you can go back and say, okay, how can I make this analogy more effective? How can I make sure that I come up with an analogy that makes a lot more sense? Sometimes we want to build an analogy that relates to people's lives, right? So if you're speaking to people who do sports, you might want to come up with an analogy about some sport equipment or a certain game and how those rules apply to the same type of transformation that you would provide in your coaching program. So I hope this video helped you raise awareness to something that's totally overlooked, especially for early stage entrepreneurs. Sometimes even later on, people just expect others, the audience, to believe them because they are authority, but that's not the case, especially with the amount of noise out there. What we want is to build a case and make our audience members, the aligned audience members, actually believe or start to believe what we say. Otherwise, we might lose them, and sometimes that results in them hiring a coach that doesn't deliver. So it's also in your interest to start getting more into how you can back things up and help your audience believe what you're stating. And if you want to dive deeper into the type of content you need to create so that there is that bridge being built, so that you can translate your unique set of skills, that transformation that you provide, that your clients know very well, but your audience doesn't see it yet, and the reason they may not reach out, you can check out the replay of a masterclass I did all around how heart-led coaches can use their content to drive more traffic onto their newsletters, drive more traffic into their DMs, get those calls booked, and then eventually convert them into clients through content without needing to manipulate people or using all those old age sales tactics. Click on the first link in the description below and let me know what you learned from this video. Which of these 3 different ways of backing up your claims are going to start intentionally integrating into your content? I want to hear your results, so always make sure you come back to the video. Let me know in the comments, or you can always find me either on IG or on X and just DM me about how things are going. Thank you so much for your attention, for getting to the end of this video. Wishing you an amazing rest of your day, and see you in another video. An example I saw in Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Slow and Rich. What? The bat cost $1 more than the ball, and the ball is 10 cents. Wouldn't the bat Come on, let me say that to Mama Jasmine. You can check out the replay of the masterclass that I did. You can check out the replay of the messaging masterclass that I made. Come on, click on the first link in the description below and check out the, come on,